Well, I'm here with Doug and Caitlin to talk about Elon's voter registration fraud, among other things. But first, we got Caitlin with a different Elon story.
Yeah, so um, if you lived in San Francisco, I'll put myself up on the main screen. So if you live in San Francisco, you've been downtown, there's this quote unquote historic Twitter building right there in the best location you could possibly be at in San Francisco. And it's the original headquarters of Twitter back when it was Twitter. Now it's X. They changed the logos, but it's still like their main thing. And they're just abandoning it. They're just leaving. And so this is from androidheadlines.com by, oh, hold on one second. Let me make sure I get this name right. Alep Naik Desai. What's happening is that the headquarters are leaving. There's not much to say. Like they didn't put out a big statement about it, just that they are closing down this office. No one knows exactly why, but Elon has been talking a lot lately about wanting to leave California and go to Texas. And I mean, if that's the case, if it's just him being a whiny billionaire crybaby, wanting to leave California because he doesn't like what we do here, okay, bye, Elon.
Well,
See you later.
I saw a report where what he said was, I'm tired of having to dodge scary drug addicts while trying to go in. And certainly I don't go downtown San Francisco either. It's not a very nice place. There are a bunch of scary, crazy people wandering around. Um,
That's true. But that's true of any big city. So even in like Seattle, you go downtown, you see drug addicts kind of being scary, and you just ignore them.
that could be. I never hardly I grew up in the country. I hardly ever go downtown to any city. I stay in the suburbs where
Yeah,
life is peaceful.
Yeah,
yeah,
but
no, yeah,
Go ahead.
no, go on.
in San Francisco, so I was recently in San Diego. In San Diego downtown looked to me like a ghost town. And everywhere you went, I walked quite a bit downtown, and obviously not in the entire city, but in the core downtown area, it smelled like urine everywhere.
Yeah.
And I would argue that San Diego is worse than San Francisco when
Well,
it comes to that.
I
The
think
the
both,
homeless and
yeah,
go ahead.
both of them, I think, have suffered greatly because of COVID and now everybody working from home. So there really is no business happening in the business district anymore.
The
Yeah,
other thing too that a lot of people might not realize is that San Francisco has a very high cost of living. And that affects how much money you get from things like Social Security if you are disabled. And a lot of people living on the streets do get supplemental income from Social Security. So if people are wondering, like, why does San Francisco have all these homeless people downtown? A lot of them very much come to get the paycheck, and then they, get drugs, unfortunately. And those are the homeless people you see. So most homeless people or poor people you don't see, you don't even realize they're poor, right? They're getting assistance. But the ones you do see, unfortunately, sort of ruin it for everyone else.
Yeah.
Because these systems are really important. We really do need these safety nets for people. Um, but it's unfortunate when the only people you see getting the safety nets are, the people that are basically drug addicts who probably shouldn't be getting any money, period.
Well, I think I agree with Gavin Newsom, what he said, at least before he started his current crackdown, when he said just letting someone die right in front of you on the street is not helping them. We shouldn't have these people that are clearly in need of medical help just dying in a doorway in front of us. It's insane.
Yeah, I think we should continue giving, benefits out. But if someone is living on the street, addicted to drugs,
Yeah.
we should probably cut off their benefits and give them another class of benefits, which is to say, put them in a hospital, a treatment center. And when they're ready to start living by themselves and get their lives together, then we can start them back up on Social Security. But as it stands right now, if you give Social Security to a drug addict, that money is going from people's taxes, into the hands of drug dealers, which,
It makes no sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
don't forget that we've got a major problem with Purdue Pharmaceuticals and their legal drugs.
oh yes, that too.
And sadly, you would think that the billions of dollars in profits that they made, we could use that money with the fines to treat these people, but that's not what we do as a society.
Well, it's more cost effective for them to just take a few of those billions and pay it to politicians to let them off the hook.
Exactly. Cost of doing business.
Yes.
Yes.
Corruption. Well, anyway, I got the other Elon story, which is kind of unbelievable. So Elon is now, of course, totally red-pilled pro-Trump, and he has made a PAC, and his PAC has put up a voter registration site. And the voter registration site will look at your IP address to determine where you're coming from. And if it's a red or a blue state, they'll let you register to vote. But if it's a battleground state, they'll collect all kinds of extra information about you and then not register you to vote, because they don't know if they want to register you to vote. They have to like investigate. They have to use this information to like decide to target you with flyers or something. So it sounds crazy and fraudulent. One analyst I read, though, said they're not breaking any laws here, which surprises me. But, I think I'm simple-minded like the FTC. You said it was voter registration, then they don't get voter registration. I would think that's a violation of what you promised. But anyway, it is pretty sleazy and scummy and nasty. And that seems to be Elon's whole thing. He seems to be, when he's not being racist and abusive, he's cheating and lying.
Sounds like he's going to be a politician soon.
He can't become president because he wasn't born here. But I think otherwise he'd certainly be thinking about it or trying it for it. So he's going to do this thing. He's going to be the Trump whisperer, and he already is. Like, he pressured Trump to take what he did was he offered Trump $54 million a month or something to pick JD Vance. Trump picked JD Vance, and then he said, "Oh, I'm not really going to give you the money." So there he is, hoodwinking Trump.
Sam, Mitt Romney's dad, I think, was early on running for president. This was 1950s, 60s. And he was born in Mexico. And, he was running for president again early on in the process. And they said, "You can't be president. You weren't born here." And he said, "That's okay. We'll figure that out later."
That's what Cenk Uygur did. He ran for president, tried to run this
Yeah.
town. No, he wasn't a citizen, and said, "Well, there is a legal problem, but maybe I'll cope with that later." So I guess, if the Supreme Court is going to do things like give you immunity to break the law, that would seem to sort of cover this. I guess all bets are off in the current legal
system. Yeah.
Anyway, so what have you got, Doug?
What do I have? Well, this is a real short story. It has to do with Android. And the shooter of Trump turned out to have been using an Android phone. And Cellbrite is a software program used to break in to lock cell phones. And in just 45 minutes, they were able to get into his phone. So what I don't know is, and what I should clarify is, we don't know how long or how complex the password was.
Right. Well, I bet it doesn't matter. I think they find 0 days to go past it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. But I thought that was interesting. Contrast that with the shooters in San Bernardino, right? And you probably know a little bit more about that. I'm going from memory now.
Well, what I remember is the FBI went to court for a month or two, claiming they had no other way in. Then they had to withdraw the case because there was another way in, which I think was Cellbrite, although I think recent reports said it was a different company. But there are these forensic companies that can bust into every phone.
Yeah.
And I met the head of Cellbrite when I was in Sri Lanka a few years ago, and he announced there and told me personally that they can break into every phone, even the latest version of iOS and Android. Now, in this case, the commercial version of Cellbrite could not break in the phone, but they had like pre-release beta that they gave them that could get in. So, and it's getting harder and harder. They keep having to find new 0 days.
Yeah. And when you say get in, you mean for the San Bernardino case, not for the Trump shooter.
Both of them.
Both of them.
San Bernardino case, they got in with one of these forensic softwares, which I think was Cellbrite, although I think I read an article that said maybe it was a different company.
Yeah.
But there are a few of these companies. I know another one is Elcomsoft in Russia. There's a few of these companies that just specialize in forensic software for phones, which means they have to find ways to blast past the PIN or the face lock or whatever, and they keep being
Yeah.
able to do that. At
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
point, maybe they'll patch them so much that they can't find another 0 day, but so far they're staying ahead of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it is a
So
constant struggle.
it is, and it's interesting that it was that quick, I guess is what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say.
that's why. I mean, they obviously didn't brute force all the pins or anything. They found them.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an endless chain of vulnerabilities that get you
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Exactly. All right.
Anyway,
Caitlin, you got another story for us?
I think she does.
I do have
Okay.
another story. So, this one's about Apple Intelligence.
Which I've been hearing about, and I would love to
Yeah.
hear what it actually does,
Yeah. So apparently Apple is putting AI features in our phones. And already we have things like the new like M4 chip that has its own NPU, neural processing unit. So it can run AI on the device itself. And Apple is pushing this thing called Apple Intelligence, which is their machine learning platform that will go on people's phones and do things like, read emails, sort email, basically make Siri a lot more intelligent. But unfortunately, and we talked about this before, machine learning is very hard to engineer with, right? Because you're not dealing with strict if this, then that. You're dealing with what is essentially sort of a dumb employee that's running on people's phones. And that's exactly what's going on. So Android Authority has this article written by Mohammed Itani. And basically what's happening is that Apple Intelligence is looking at people's emails and trying to sort out phishing emails and completely failing. And what's happening is that those phishing emails are being put in the priority email list. So if you think that like machine learning is going to make us safer, think again. I know there's some people in the computing industry worried that AI is going to take their job. I can tell you right now that if you're at least working in security, you have really good job security right now. And so these machine learning platforms are going on people's phones, and it's just another aspect that attackers can go after, right? They can prioritize their emails to get past the AI and make it seem like high priority by choosing your words carefully in the future. So another new risk has emerged thanks to people pushing machine learning onto devices just as soon as possible.
Well, to be fair, it's a beta still, so it's got bugs, and detecting phishing email is actually a very easy job for machine learning, so Apple should get this fixed pretty quick.
One would hope. One would hope.
Yeah. All right. Well, I was interested in this thing called Slubstick. Now, the Linux kernel has some heap overflows, but most of the heap overflows are not exploitable. So what they found was by combining the heap overflow with a raise condition, they can raise the probability of a successful exploit from 40% up to 99%. And the trick is the Linux kernel manages memory efficiently and securely by allocating and deallocating memory chunks called slabs for different types of data structures. So what you do is instead of finding overflow and just hoping you can get an arbitrary write out of it, which is the way simple heap overflows work, you detect when one of those slabs is being deallocated and strike at exactly that moment. So the memory from one part of the heap is going to be reused for a different purpose. That's the trick. By timing it correctly and planning to have your heap be reused for a different purpose, you're able to have this high chance of success. So I think the point of this is heap allocation, but of course in the real world impact, probably not too large. I think you'd have to have local code running to do the timing accurately enough and such, but it does indicate in principle a security weakness of the Linux kernel, which may be quite difficult to fix. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say about that one. I know Doug's got another.
I do. So this is interesting, Sam. Remember maybe about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, we were talking about Federal Express and that they have cameras that are being mounted on their delivery vehicles. And as they drive on to people's property, that information, those videos can be sold to law enforcement. Does that sound familiar?
I didn't remember that part. I know it's true of Ring cameras. I wonder, if people were driving around selling those videos to law enforcement, that might be quite a boon to law enforcement. And I wouldn't think there'd be a privacy risk, right? Because all they're going to see is stuff happening in public.
Well, the issue is, I believe law enforcement, if they, in order to get video of your property, has to get a warrant to enter your property.
Right.
I think.
Right. But what happens on the public street is public, right?
Right. But what happens if you have a delivery vehicle that drives onto the property and makes a video?
Well, okay, then you'd have to decide. There's a plain view doctrine. So I mean, anyway, it's an interesting issue, but I would think the worst case would be that they would take certain parts of this video and say this part is private and you can't use that in court, but the rest you could use. And for things like traffic speeding and stuff, it would be things that happen out on a public street.
Yeah. Well, Ford has filed for a patent.
Right.
How's that? Let's kind of update this. This is Ford. We were talking about FedEx, but they filed for a patent that passenger cars, their cameras can monitor for speeders, record the video, and send to law enforcement. Again, this is a patent only.
Well, yeah, I mean, according to the article I read, they're intending it for police cars. Ford made police cars.
Well, the article I read said that it would be on passenger cars.
Well, that would be interesting. And, I might be for it. I might be, that way it'll automatically take a picture of who collided with me and stuff and help me with insurance.
Well, but the thing is, if you're driving down the street, you have a Ford.
Yeah.
Your camera, if it detects a speeder flying by you, the
Right.
camera will flip on, record the video. I'm assuming send it to Ford, who will then sell it to law enforcement.
Sounds fine to me. As a matter of fact, ever since the pandemic, I drive around and there's idiots going 100 miles around me, and I would like to call the cops and get them to knock it off.
Yeah. I will tell you, in California, I've seen CHP has really increased enforcement on freeways. At least that's my observation.
Yeah, and that's so, man, I'm not sure any of this bothers me yet.
Yeah. Again, it's a patent. We'll see what happens.
So we'll see what happens. But I remember there's the Ripple billionaire in San Francisco put cameras all over everywhere to try to stop people from breaking into cars. And that turned into a big scandal, privacy invasion and stuff. Also, he was using like public light poles for anyway. But I see two sides here. Like putting cameras everywhere could make you safer. It could also mean you could intrude on people's privacy and find out things you shouldn't.
Yeah, but you're right. This is a societal issue that we have to decide.
I thought it was interesting, when Google Earth went to Japan and they tried to drive around these cars and take pictures of everybody, the Japanese people freaked out and kicked them out of the country and said, absolutely not. We will not allow this. They have a picture of like a guy standing outside smoking, who, when he doesn't want people to know he smokes, picture of a guy standing outside a brothel. They say absolutely not. Even what happens outside on the street is personal, and you cannot just go around taking pictures of it and publishing it on the internet. Absolutely not. Their concept of privacy is much more than an American concept of privacy.
Yeah, interesting, huh?
Yeah,
yeah, it'd be interesting. I don't know that this has been done, but this sounds like a PBS show to compare privacy laws around the world.
Yes, and concepts of personal space and privacy are just, they vary.
Yeah.
And concepts of your like reputation and how much it would damage you if someone saw you doing a bad thing, and would it your whole family and ruin all these other lives if they found out that you did the bad thing,
Yeah, interesting, huh?
Yeah.
All right, Caitlin, you have another one?
So my final article is about Starliner, which has been making headlines for the past month or so.
Oh, yeah.
So Ars Technica and Eric Berger. Thank you, Eric. Eric has been featured on this podcast many times for his Ars Technica articles. NASA is going to delay the Crew 9 launch to the International Space Station because of all the Boeing drama. So the Boeing Starliner that was supposed to be checked and send astronauts home is still on the space station waiting for the green light. And it does not have it yet. It has had so many issues, including having thrusters fail, among other things. So they don't know if it's space worthy or flight worthy, I should say. And so there's still astronauts kind of stranded on the space station. And the International Space Station has 2 docking ports. And ideally, both should be free for stuff to come up and down. But obviously, one is occupied by this dumb Starliner that is just like not operating to spec, which is funny because they did some initial tests with Starliner. It went around the moon and it was fine. And then they're like, okay, let's put some people on there, send them to the International Space Station, and the damn thing just crapped out. And so now they're looking at like alternatives. Like they don't know whether or not they can put people on it, send them back, which is delaying new people coming up. And so it's delaying the entire space program. And now they're looking at ways like, well, okay, it has like some busted thrusters. How do we, let's say we don't want to put people back on. We still need to get this undocked so we can have 2 docking ports. Well, they need to then update the software to make that happen. But they don't know if that'll work. They don't know how long it's going to take. There's no end date in sight. And then it has to make sure that it does everything right, because if the thrusters go off or it starts tumbling uncontrollably in vicinity of the space station, it could cause major damage. So if it does have to come down by itself, it has to be fully automated with software updates that don't exist yet. And yeah, no, this has become just what a mess. What an absolute mess. Boeing, like, just
Yeah. Well, at least, nobody got hurt.
That's true. That's true. We pride ourselves in the space industry of making sure that safety is number 1.
Yeah, it reminds me of Apollo 13, right? Where the thing was breaking and these poor guys are stranded up there and they managed to get them home. So,
In fact, that's why safety is number 1, is because we had Apollo 13.
well, but we know it's dangerous.
Yes.
We know the stuff will fail sometimes. It surely seems like a black eye for Boeing, though. I mean, they just seem to have done a lousy job, far below what they should have done.
Yeah, they probably tried to save a bunch of money where they shouldn't have. And I've seen this a lot happen in engineering jobs, where one of the things that I've learned as an engineer is the cry once principle. Pay once, cry once, right? Where you could buy, the lesser thing and try to make it work, and then maybe later upgrade, or just buy the thing that goddamn works. And then, even though it's ridiculously expensive, and just cry once about the cost and get it over with. And when time is a valuable commodity, like you're going to space, you need to get astronauts home, put in the money, do things right.
And even from a hard-nosed Machiavellian business purpose, this is a high-profile mission. The reputation of your company is on the line. Whereas, if you have an airplane that breaks and you can't take off, then nobody will really notice. The flight is late. But here you're up there at the space station, stranding people, embarrassing your company like crazy,
Yeah, and the thing is too, like, even if they were to lose money on Starliner, they could easily make it up on their aircraft, because they'll be like, we're Boeing, we put stuff in space, you should buy our aircraft, right? Like, it's high profile. You can make money off that, but instead people are like, no, we don't want anything to do with Boeing. And unfortunately, it's making people look better, look at things like SpaceX, unfortunately, which is run by a not so savory individual.
But his spacecraft appear to be superior, which should be the main consideration.
His spacecraft are not rated to go to the moon, though, but they can get people to the International Space Station.
Yeah, well, that's why I say I wish he would just shut up about politics and just make cars and spaceships. Then everybody would love him.
Yeah. No, unfortunately, and I don't know what it is about being a car manufacturer type person, but it just seems to attract just the worst people.
It does.
Well, it's a very competitive business.
Well,
very competitive. And if you know Fisker Fisker cars, they just went bankrupt not too long ago.
Yep.
And, you know, if we look at GM over the past 20 years, they reduced the number of brands that they have. It's a very competitive, slim margin.
Well, yeah. And that's why Elon Musk, Tesla is not really a car company. Now he's just an AI company. I think it's a meme stock. But anyway, most of his money does not really come from selling the cars. It comes from
Yeah.
basically being a famous influencer. So, I mean, he's succeeding, but not really by making cars. Anyway,
Yeah. And the car quality, from what I'm hearing, has gone down dramatically.
boy, people sure complain about that tank looking thing, the
Cybertruck.
Yeah, I saw one of them recently up close. It was parked at the grocery store, and I went and looked, and the whole thing is like colored, sort of silver gold color. It's colored the same as my Superior Toyota, my 30-year-old Toyota, but it's all flat, but everything's flat metal, so it reflects like a mirror. It's even this one wasn't super polished, but even so, it's sort of disorienting and confusing when you get close to it. Instead of having
Yeah.
like a car, it's got these mirrors that reflect the light in strange ways. It just seems like a really poorly designed product. Why would you want all those flat planes? They don't seem to contribute anything beneficial. Anyway,
Radar detection.
yeah.
It's a non-stealth vehicle,
Yeah.
easy for law enforcement to use radar on.
Well, that would be good. Anyway, I saw an article. I actually ignored this the first couple of times I saw it. This is obviously this is a fake article. It can't be real, but then it's written by a real physicist from real college and in a real magazine, phys.org. And I realized this is real. So they say the Stubbs Higgs particle could have ended the universe by now. Here's why we're still here. So I was very interested to read this. I did not understand the Higgs boson. They found it a while ago at the European
Hadron
Collider. And I didn't really understand the point, but this article explains it in a way I can understand it better than ever. The Higgs boson is the particle that controls gravity. And I don't really understand this. I learned it in physics going by, but I never really understood it. It's one of the reasons I stayed out of particle physics. Every force has to have a particle mediating it. So photons mediate the electromagnetic force, and the Higgs boson mediates gravity. So it would be uniting gravity with quantum mechanics if they get it thoroughly understood. But the point is, this means that gravity is a field, like the electromagnetic field. The whole universe has this field in it. And what he says is the field is not in the ground state. It is in what's called a metastable state. The whole universe is like, you can have conditions where you heat something up, and when you cool it down, it gets stuck. Like you can do this with water. If you have water and it's completely pure water and you put it in a jar, you can cool it below its freezing point and it will stay liquid for a while. And then if it gets a particle of ice, it'll all ice up, or if you tap the jar, it'll all ice up all at once because it's stuck in a high energy state. It just doesn't have a path to get down. If you give it any path, it will all fall down to the low energy state. And that is apparently the case with the Higgs field. So all of gravity could just suddenly change and basically destroy the universe. It would change the fundamental physical properties, so everything would stop. And apparently, the interesting question is, why hasn't this happened? And apparently, in order for it to happen, you have to have a very high temperature space. And this is where you get, one question is, were they going to cause this with the particle accelerator, but it doesn't get hot enough. But the thing that would get hot enough is a microscopic black hole. And this is another thing I was amazed to read about. I always think of black holes as being cold and dark, but that's not true because of Hawking radiation. Hawking figured out that even though light does not have enough energy to get out of a black hole, it can tunnel out with quantum mechanical tunneling. And this is normally a very weak process, and so black holes will take billions of years to decay. But small black holes have a less of an energy barrier and will decay very rapidly. They decay so rapidly they get hot. So small black holes, the microscopic black holes that were theoretically caused near the Big Bang, would in fact create zones of heat so large that they would cause the Higgs boson to collapse. So his conclusion is those black holes must not have been formed in the Big Bang. People have hypothesized that tiny black holes, smaller than the Earth, smaller than the moon, just I think a few thousand kilograms, would have formed during the Big Bang, but apparently they didn't, or the universe would have collapsed. Anyway, I find this stuff amazing. It's nothing to worry about. I mean, even if the universe is going to collapse for this reason, it's a long ways out, billions of years out. A bunch of things are going to get us in a few billion years. We only have so long to do whatever we're going to do here. But
And
anyway,
if it does collapse, it would collapse at the speed of light, meaning that we would just be here and then we would have no warning and then we'd be gone.
that's right. So
This kept me up and made me very depressed in my early 20s.
I remember when I was 17 and I realized I was going to die, and this just seemed intolerable. I said, I need to find some way to avoid this horrible thing, like get a robot body or something. And then by the time I was 40, I said, I don't know why I cared so much. Life is not worth clinging on to so much. But, at a certain age, it just seems intolerable.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing is, this whole song is going to come to an end. You might as well not imagine anything else, but it's a long way out.
But I have trouble believing that there's never been a microscopic black hole anywhere in our universe. There must have been some black hole formed just by pure coincidence somewhere. Do you know what a Kugelblitz is, Sam?
What a what?
A Kugelblitz?
No, I don't.
Okay, so a Kugelblitz is when you have a bunch of lasers pointed in one spot such that the EM field in that one spot is large enough, has enough energy potential to essentially form a black hole just from light. Now, you would think that there would just be random, the universe is so big, random chance, there'd be something like that happening where there's now a small little black hole that'll just evaporate, but nothing like that has ever happened, which is really strange. If we're assuming everything you said is true, that a microscopic black hole would end the universe.
Well, of course, his point is it could happen and it will happen. It just hasn't happened yet. So the probability is apparently fairly low.
Yeah, but you would think it would, I mean, with everything in the universe.
Yeah.
You would think it would have happened somewhere, sometime.
Well, the universe is not really that big. I think it's only 51 billion light years. I mean, we can see to the end of it. It's not really that big.
All right. Well, think about it this way. The Andromeda Galaxy is much larger than the Milky Way Galaxy. We know that there's at least one intelligent life form in the Milky Way Galaxy, and the universe has been around for almost 14 billion years.
Right.
And so there's very likely there's been a civilization on our scale somewhere between the Milky Way and Andromeda, maybe a billion years ago, 500 million years ago. And if that's the case, they could have built their own Kugelblitz, in which case it's not so far away that we wouldn't have been destroyed by now.
Well, yes. Then the question is, it doesn't seem like we could possibly build a particle accelerator strong enough to create the kind of black hole he's talking about. That's the point. You really need something incredibly powerful like the Big Bang. And I don't think we're ever going to have anything that can create something that resembles the Big Bang.
You don't need a Big Bang to get a black hole. You just need enough stuff in a small enough area, enough energy in a small enough area. And like I said, with light, you don't even, because there's no, what's it called, a degeneracy pressure. You can get as much energy as you need into a small little space using lasers to create a small little black hole.
Have we done it yet?
No.
Okay, maybe we shouldn't.
But you would think some alien somewhere in the universe, even just by natural chance, something like that would have happened somewhere, which would have destroyed everything. But
well, the other possibility is his theory is wrong, and there's a correction term he hasn't included yet. This is all pretty theoretical stuff.
So yeah, a lot of this theoretical stuff is really easy to disprove. For example, I want to show you that time travel is possible. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say, hey, time travelers, show me it's possible by coming back right now. It's 8:45 a.m. Tuesday, the 6th of August. Come show up. They're not showing up. Time travel is not going to happen.
Well, we can travel back in time.
Yeah, well, you didn't offer them enough money.
I will offer them. I have a supply of Monster energy drinks. These are good. These are the Ultra Blacks. They have they can have my entire case. Just come back in time.
Yeah,
now.
This is not an impressive argument.
It is. It is a good argument. Yeah, no,
you're not presenting an irresistible temptation.
No. So here's the thing too. Like if backwards time travel were possible, there would be a ton of people like at watching D-Day, for example, or there would be a bunch of people watching in New York on 9/11.
Well,
There's a
sure.
bunch of strangers show up.
All you have to
these.
do is have the multiverse hypothesis for each one of them that does this, creates another branch, and each one of us is living on one of these branches and we can't see the others. You can resolve that.
Yeah, but where's all that energy come from? If you create a new branch, now you have double the amount of energy from one universe into another universe.
Yeah, well, this is the hypothesis, which is one interpretation of quantum mechanics, which some people push very seriously, which is that
Yeah,
every
but
universe is constantly diverging into a multiverse.
yeah, but
And
that's a dumb interpretation because it requires like infinite energy, like doubling every time that the universe diverges.
well, I'm not sure that's true. I mean, the alternative is to believe in this thing called the collapse of the wave function, which is very hard to understand. So, I mean, these two are considered logically comparable hypotheses, and I don't see any experimental evidence pushing for one or the other, really. It's kind of hard
Well,
to know
no,
what it could be.
yeah, we don't. I mean, you can't disprove it, but that's like saying, string theory is the best thing ever. Well, you can't disprove it. It's like,
Oh, well, string theory, you probably can disprove. It has actual predictions, and that's why we moved from earlier theories, and probably one day we'll move to something more beyond string theory. But the multiverse hypothesis seems not to have any predictions yet.
right.
So we can't prove or disprove it. But I mean, anyway, that's not impossible. Anyway,
And
I think that's all the news articles. Do you folks have anything else?
That's it for me.
All right. I'm going to turn it off then, and we'll have another one of these things on Friday.
I will not be here on Friday.
All right. I imagine I will be. Actually, I might have to do it a different time of day because I might be teaching a workshop at DEF CON, but I'll try and make one of these on Friday at one time or another.
So I will be gone on Friday and Tuesday. I will be in Iceland of all places.
Yes. What's in
Iceland?
some kind of
No, it's going to be cold, and I'm going to go whale watching and do science and stuff.
whale watching is fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. There's volcanoes too to see there, I understand.
Volcanoes, very interesting wildlife. Oh no, it's just a very remote area that just is scientifically very interesting that I just want to go visit. And
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I took a
Yeah.
cruise to Norway and it was wonderful. It was sort of scientific. They explained things. It was great.
Good.
All right.